Sitting on the front porch with family or friends brings a cherished sense of comfort and connection, where the simple joys of music and conversation blend into moments of shared wisdom and growth. It's a space where life's lessons are exchanged freely, and every interaction is meaningful. At Wisdom on the Front Porch, we capture this spirit in our podcast and magazine. Let's join in to today's podcast.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wisdom on the Front Porch. I hope you can forgive my scratchy voice. I'm getting over a 3-week cold, and each day's a little better. But today we have Nicky with us. So, Nicky, why don't you tell our audience who you are and what you do?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Real pleasure to be here with you. I'm Nicky Billou. I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old in 1978, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. I don't know if you remember that time or all the things that happened in the world back then, but prior to that, Iran was ruled by the Shah, His Imperial Highness Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and Iran was a pro-Western, highly developed country in the Middle East. And the Shah had been attempting to lift Iran out of the Middle Ages, kicking and screaming into the 20th century. He had conducted something called the White Revolution, where he took land from the landed gentry and landowners and distributed to the common folk. He also was the first Muslim Middle Eastern country to give women full equal rights. And there was a bit of a backlash against this by the mullahs and the folks who didn't want this. And, within 15 or so years, the revolution took place. And unfortunately, the feckless Jimmy Carter was president at that time. And he turned against the Shah, didn't want to help him. And the Shah was sick with cancer at the time and was pressured by the Carter administration to let Khomeini take over. And if you think about this, all the Islamic fundamentalism, terrorism in the world springs from this feckless decision by former President Jimmy Carter. And as a result of that, the Shah's regime fell. And my family, being Christians, we left. Mom and Dad said, this isn't going to be a place to raise a Christian family, right? And, I was a kid at the time. I was 11 in 78. And by the time we left in 80, I was 13. And then by the time we got to Canada, where I now live, it was 1982. I was almost 15. So it was close to a 4-year time frame. And I was a kid. I didn't want to leave my home or my friends. I don't know if you can appreciate that, but that's where my head was at.
We moved a lot when I was growing up, so I understand.
Yeah. So I just did not want to move. I did not want to leave. And, over time, I started to fall in love with Canada, with the West, with freedom. I started to read some writers who spoke about freedom. I don't know if you're familiar with Ayn Rand, who wrote 2 books that became very famous. One of them is called The Fountainhead. The other one is called Atlas Shrugged. Okay. Atlas Shrugged it was published in the late 50s, I think 1957. Since that time, there's only one book that has outsold it, like over a long period of time, and that's the Bible. Atlas Shrugged is the second biggest selling book after the Bible over that long a period of time. I read this book. I was 20 years old when I read it. It was 1987, 30 years after it was originally published. And it was a shock to the system. I was really, really taken in by its message. It was a novel, and I was doing a paper for school, like an essay. And I would spend time working on the paper and then reading the book, I didn't sleep for a week. All I did was work on the paper and read the book. And then when I was finally done and I crashed and I fell asleep, but I just was taken in with the message. And I was taken in with the message of individual freedom. And, you know, this was the 80s, right? In the 80s, there were a couple of world leaders that were really speaking the message of freedom powerfully. One of them was President Ronald Reagan. The other one was Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom. So I just fell in love with those guys. I thought they were awesome. You know, I was like the Alex P. Keaton of the University of Toronto, right? The conservative in school. And I became even more enamored with those that supported freedom. And I became the sworn enemy of those that were against freedom. And I started to see something, that the people in our society that embody freedom really beautifully well are obviously men and women who fight, bleed, and die in the military. They literally fight, bleed, and die for freedom. But then the second group are the entrepreneurs, right? The entrepreneurs, because they're the ones who have a vision, a dream, a desire to make all that come alive. It's a beautiful thing, you know. It's a beautiful thing.
So you've read this book, and you're just on fire with it. So did you become an entrepreneur yourself right away, or did you go into?
Well, I was in school. I was in school. I didn't immediately become an entrepreneur, but I fell in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur, and eventually I became an entrepreneur. And I became the kind of entrepreneur who helps other entrepreneurs become successful, right? Because I think they're the greatest people in society. And my late father, God rest his soul, he passed away 5 years ago. Like, he was my hero because he was an entrepreneur. And he was the kind of man who'd come to me and say, son, that woman sitting in front of you, that's someone's mother, that's someone's daughter, that's someone's sister, that's someone's wife. She's important to somebody. She's got hopes, she's got dreams, she's got fears. Maybe someone just like you let her down in business. It's your job to restore her faith in humanity. And I was like, oh man, okay. And he said, son, remember, everybody needs someone to believe in them. You, me, everybody. Because our faith in ourselves wobbles from time to time. And our job, my job, your job, is to believe in people, believe in them enough so their faith starts to steady, and that little spark of belief turns into a roaring fire, and then they're off into the races, and they're living the life of their dreams. So that's how come I got into the business of helping entrepreneurs. And because I came from an entrepreneurial background, I studied business in school, I knew a lot about how to help people become successful in business, because a lot of people in business are good people. They're good at what they do, but they suck at business. That's a technical business term, suck, right? You know, they're not good at sales or marketing. They're afraid of selling. They don't want to be seen with one of those pushy salespeople, man, reeking of commission breath. And I'm like, listen, here's the drill. The problem is, if you don't go after sales, you'll lose out on sales you should get. So you don't make the money. The client loses because they don't get a good person helping them. And then some charlatan marketer swoops in who doesn't care whether they deliver or not. And they get the business. And everybody loses. You lose because you don't get the business. The client loses because they don't get their problem solved. Even the charlatan loses because what goes around comes around. So I decided I'm going to help people because, you know, all I got to do is show them how to reframe how they look at sales, right? Reframe it. So you don't need to look at sales as a, how am I going to put this? As a bad thing, as like, because nobody wants to be sold, right? You don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold, right? But what if you looked at it as serving somebody, as an act of love, an act of caring? So I only sell to people I care about. If you're not somebody I care about, I'm not going to sell to you. You know, and then when I teach this to people, they're like, okay, they take the attention off themselves, which is, I hope they like me. I hope they're going to do business with me. And they put the intention where it belongs, on the other person. I wonder what she's dealing with, you know, and how can I help her? And when you focus on helping the person in front of you and you take the attention off helping your wallet, amazing things happen. You know, so I had a client, good guy, personal trainer. He only had 7 clients. He was broke. He wasn't able to make enough money to pay his rent, never mind eat or have transportation. And the problem was he was always thinking about, I hope they like me. I hope they want me. So he made $1,200 a month in a big city in Toronto. That's like Dallas or Houston, right? $1,200 a month in Dallas or Houston ain't going to get you far, right? So, you know, he was trying to go after people who had a lot of money, like doctors. And I said, that's not going to work for you, man. He says, no, I'm going to do it. It didn't work. And I said, dude, it's not going to work for you. You got to think of something other than they have a lot of money. He goes, okay. He says, all right, I'll go for cardiologists. I go, why? They have more money than doctors. I go, did you not hear what I just said? No, I'm doing it. No sales. Then partway through this, through serendipity, he met a guy who was a Paralympian, had a missing leg, childhood accident. And they really hit it off, and he got him going. And he comes to me and he goes, Nicky, I owe you an apology. I go, what for? He said, well, you keep telling me to stop going for the money, and I wasn't listening. And he said, you were right. I go, yeah, I usually am. Right. And he said, right now I'm working with this guy who's got a missing limb. It's not about the money, and I think I want to help people with missing limbs. I go, man, that's a great idea. So here's what I want you to understand. He was not going for the money, okay? In 6 weeks, he signed up 400 clients.
Wow.
He made over $100,000 a month as a personal fitness trainer. Now, you got to understand, personal fitness trainers don't make that kind of money. They just don't. As a result of that, you know, he was fulfilled.
Wow.
This guy went from broke to rich by not focusing on the money.
And that's something.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time we're told everybody's supposed to know, like, and trust you, and then you go after it, and you get to know people, but you need to serve them too. And I've noticed that when I get rid of the money part of it and just concentrate on the person, it's just so much better relationship, better way to work together.
Listen, money's important. Don't get me wrong here. We're not doing stuff for free, right? But if money is like, I'm just looking for the money and screw the person, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work for anybody.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So have you written a book yourself? I know a lot of people have.
I'm sorry?
Have you written a book yourself?
Yeah. I've written several books.
And are they on Amazon or on your website?
They're on Amazon, yeah. So this is probably my most famous business book. It's called Finish Line Thinking, How to Think and Win Like a Champion. It's about how to adopt the mindset of a champion athlete. This one's called The Thought Leader's Journey, A Fable of Life. This is for people who work in a company and want to find the courage to start their own business for the first time. This one's called The Power of Connecting, How to Activate Profitable Relationships by Serving Your Network. This is about how to basically use your own network to generate more business success. This one is called How to Create $1 Million a Year Income, the Priceless Guide for Life Insurance Agents, Sales Professionals, and Anyone with a Big Dream. So, and then I've got another one that I don't have over here right now, but it's called Get Booked and Get Paid, How to Generate 6 Figures Plus a Year Through Podcast Guesting. So those are my 5 business books. And then I've written a health and fitness book. I've written a children's book, and I've written a couple of political books as well.
Wow. And we can just find all of those on Amazon then?
Yeah, if you go to Amazon and you type in my name, Nicky Billou, I'm the only Nicky Billou on the planet.
Okay.
If you like to read, go order them. I'm a great writer, and I got a powerful series of messages in them.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's really great. So when someone wants to work with you, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, best way is to go to my website and jump on a call with me. Go to ecircleacademy.com/appointment. Pick a time that works for you, and let's have a discovery call.
Okay. And who do you work with mostly? Is it just entrepreneurs of any stage, or are there certain parameters you like to work with?
Well, I can work with most folks, but I'll tell you who really gets the best results from working with us tends to be somebody who has been in business for a little while and has had some clients. You know what I mean? If they're never had clients, I'm not saying we can't help them. We can. It's harder. It takes time. It takes time to get somebody with zero experience going. They're not ideal for us. We like to work with somebody who's had a client or 2 or more, and just maybe they're stuck, and they want to get past being stuck, right? Maybe they want to get to their first 6 figures, or their first $250,000, or their first $500,000 or $1 million a year. We're really, really able to help those kinds of people get really good results relatively quickly.
Excellent. Yeah. Someone told me one time, you can't expect to make $10,000 a month if you haven't ever made $1,000 a month. So
true.
You take them through that process.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Wow.
Most of the clients we work with kind of are in that $5,000 to $25,000 a month range.
Okay.
They tend to be our ideal people. And as I said, do we work with people that have done less? Yeah, we have. Not ideal. Do we work with people who've done more? Yeah, we have too. People who make more, we got to just make sure it's a good fit. What happens to certain entrepreneurs at a certain age is they go into what we call the ego zone, and their ego takes over. They think their poop doesn't stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you need someone to have a little bit of humility and the ability to be coachable, to work with them. And that's very important for us, because I won't work with an uncoachable person. I don't care how much money you pay. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Because they don't want to listen. They won't take what you're teaching them and put into action.
Look, you got to take the coaching. When I'm being coached, I do everything in my power to be coachable, even if I don't like the coaching, because it doesn't matter whether I like it or not. What matters is I get out of my comfort zone. And that really is what my clients need to do when they work with me. You got to be coachable. There's 4 qualities you got to have. One of them's be decisive, right? I'm going to do this. No tire kicking, right? Committed. You're not going to be great at it at first. It's going to take time. You got to be willing to go through the process of going from terrible to good to great. And then you got to be coachable, and you got to be willing to invest in yourself. That's important. And then finally, you got to be resourceful. You need to come up with the money to pay us and work on yourself. You need to come up with the time and the energy to do the work. All that's very important.
Well, that's really good parameters to know and to have. Yeah, I'm just thinking of all the things I've been told about coaching, and those are the same things that keep coming up about it. So
sure.
For somebody who's out there listening, and maybe this is the first time they've ever heard of anything like this, what's an example you can give them of how you would work with them?
Well, let me share a story with you.
Okay.
So I had a client. She came to us, and she was a successful woman. She made $10,000-$12,000 a month. And she was a functional medicine doctor. You with me? So what happened was she wanted to do better. She'd done better in the past. And her father also was very sick. He had brain cancer, glioblastoma. And she was daddy's girl, not happy. And she came to us and she said, look, my father's going to pass away soon. I need to honor his memory. The best way I know to honor his memory is to become successful, because he was a successful entrepreneur. I want to say, look, Daddy, your girl did it. So her biggest problem was she had no idea how to narrow her focus. When I asked her, who do you help? How do you do it? She says, I can help anybody with any health problem. And I said, that really is not helpful. That's why you're stuck where you're at. And she says, well, how do I fix this? I said, well, let's do an exercise. I said, I want you to make a list of all the clients that you've worked with in the past. And I want you to make a list of all the ones that you loved working with. Like, they were so awesome to work with. She did that. And I said, now I want you to make another list of all the clients that you got incredible results for, like off the chart. She did that. And then I said, I want you to make a list of all the clients that were easy to do business with. She says, what do you mean? I said, they pay on time, in full, and give you referrals. Lots of them. She made a list of those. I said, okay, who's on all three lists? Oh. That's your ideal client. That's the ideal client exercise. That's one of the exercises we run our people through. And it turned out that they had a few things in common. They were mostly women, married professionals over the age of 45, good marriages, good families, kids, good careers, happy in every single way, except one. It was an interesting one. See, a lot of these ladies had once been young and beautiful, and they remembered it. And they no longer felt they were young and beautiful. And they hated that. Hated it. They wouldn't say anything out loud to anybody, but inside, as women, they were not happy. And see, I'm a man, so I can't speak from personal experience. Right. But you might be able to chime in on this. I've heard before that women like feeling young and beautiful. Is this true?
I'm the wrong person to ask, because I like me at every age.
Well, good for you.
Because every age offers something that hasn't been there before.
Well, there you go.
But yes, for the most part, I believe it's true.
So she, we helped her name her program, Get Your Sexy Back. And her message was, you can, you're going to get older. She said that's inevitable, right? The number is going to go up every year, but aging is optional. You can be as young and vibrant and beautiful in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as you were in your 20s, 30s, 40s. Anyways, apparently this was a good message.
Yeah.
And she doubled her income every year for 3 years in a row. She
Wow.
went from
That's
6
amazing.
figures a year to 6 figures a month.
Isn't that
And
something?
narrowing your focus, coming up with your ideal client with a really good message, that works.
Yeah. And I could see how it would. One of the things I do is I can't sit still doing things. If there's a lull, which there's usually always a time that not much is happening, but that's the waiting period. It's like you're baking a cake. You got to wait for that cake to actually bake. And it's hard sometimes for some people to just sit there and do nothing. So I'm one of those. It's like I can't sit there and do nothing, so I go on to another project. Drives my husband crazy. It's like, why don't you finish one project before you start another? Because I'll do things around the house. And I says, because I'm waiting for these parts, or I'm waiting for that, so now I can get this other one started. And so it's like one room will be empty while I'm working on the floors, and another one will be painting. But it does make sense, because in business, when you start doing too many things, now all of a sudden you've got no focus on any one thing, and everything's there and nothing's happening because you can't concentrate on it. You've got these other things going on. So I get it. Yeah, it's tough to do that. And I found
Absolutely.
myself, when I just work on one thing at a time, then wow, it just takes off.
100%.
Yeah. So what is some advice you give to somebody like that who maybe has 3 different things going on? How do you get them to zero in on the one that they really need to concentrate on? Or is there a way to make all 3 work? Like I have a podcast and a magazine and books. So
Well, there's a way to do everything, but you got to focus on your main moneymaker,
okay,
right? That's really, if
that makes sense.
people need to understand, yet you're in business, right? Your main moneymaker has got to be where you put most of your time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast, but the podcast isn't my main moneymaker. I still do it. My books, I don't make money from book sales, but the book acts as a funnel and gets people on a calendar with me.
There
That's
you
okay.
go. Yeah, that was one thing I was talking about actually in 2 different groups today. Was talking about sales is getting that funnel. Where do people go to find something, then they go to find more information, then they make a contact with you, and then go from there. And it's important to have those in place.
It truly is
Yeah,
supercalifragilistic important.
yeah. And I love that each of your books do the same thing, although I haven't seen your children's book, but they do the same thing, just they come at it from different avenues. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it's you can help different people, but you're helping them all the same way, um, just in the
Yep.
way that they're thinking and the way they're doing their business, but it's still the same help.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So we can look for you on Amazon by your name, Nicky Billou.
Yes.
And what is your website again?
eCircleacademy.com.
Okay. All right. And they can work with you as coaching. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else you said. I'm trying not to write everything down because I really want to focus on what you're saying. But it's hard not to because I want to learn too.
For sure.
But
I get that.
yeah, yeah. And so it's um, I like how you're helping entrepreneurs figure out what they really need to do. And if they're not bringing in the the income that they want or that they feel that they need. You help them figure that part out and how to get there. Yeah.
100%.
Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience?
It's the dawn of a new day. I think there's an optimism in the air in America and in the West, and go for it. And if you're not feeling it, if your belief in yourself right now is low, come jump on my calendar, borrow some of mine, because I believe in you.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank your audience. I'll be glad when my voice gets all the way back. I have the energy like I used to have. And thank you, Nicky, so much for being here. I think you really brought a lot of value to our audience, and I appreciate that. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, we'll see you next time on Wisdom on the Front Porch. And remember, we've got the magazine done. First issue is out. You do not have to pay for the first issue. It's our complimentary gift to you. So go to wisdomonthefrontporch.com, see the episodes for the podcast, find the magazine, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on Wisdom on the Front Porch with your host, LS Kirkpatrick. You can find us on our website, wisdomonthefrontporch.com, see previous episodes of the podcast, and view issues of the magazine. Did you know you can submit questions, leave reviews, or suggest topics? You can also tell us where your favorite front porch location is and what it means to you. We hope you gain value and insight from today's or previous talks. We appreciate your support for us so we can continue to provide value and expertise to you and others. Subscribe to Wisdom on the Front Porch magazine and join in next week when we bring you another great insight into the world of entrepreneur culture and lifestyle. Make today a great day. Always believe that something wonderful is going to happen.